As many of you know, the northern Colorado area has suffered, has been a major victim of suicide this past year. Not only occurring in Berthoud a few times, but also Windsor, and I assume, as everyone knows, it even hit Thompson Valley fairly recently. It's been on my heart for a long time, even before this started happening, that we need to bring awareness to this issue and bring understanding to the issue. It's not just something that's occurring, but it's an epidemic. One person doing it is leading to more people doing it, and so on. It's like a disease, it's like a sickness. This has been so heavy on my heart because I have known people who have struggled with wanting to commit suicide, or even just depression and anxiety, and I don't want them to feel like they should be scared to get help. I don't want them to feel as if there's a stigma that goes along with getting help, saying that you're weak, or you can't deal with stuff on your own, because that is not how it should be. Suicide is an illness. Depression is an illness. They are mental illnesses, and they should be treated like cancer and like other diseases, and people shouldn't be afraid to get help. While researching this, and I've known for a long time that I wanted to do my project on this, and I want to call attention to it, but it was difficult for me because I know how sensitive the topic is. Before events happened at Thompson Valley, I had already had this issue on my heart, and I had already wanted to do it, and after certain things had happened at Thompson Valley this year, I thought about not doing it. I didn't want to trigger anybody. I didn't want to stir up unwanted attention, so I just thought about not doing it. But then it occurred to me that why wouldn't I want to do it, especially if it is so close to home. Obviously there are people in our school, even in classes we take probably, that are struggling with things like this, and they feel like they can't talk to anybody. They feel like they can't open up. They feel like suicide is the only option, and I want to make it very clear that it is not. I know a lot of times when people bring up this issue, when people start to talk about it, they go more of the judging route. So they say, oh, like, suicide shouldn't even be an option, that's awful that they're even feeling that way, and that should not be how this issue is attacked. Also, very quickly after events occur, that's where people are most reactive. People just feel like they should do stuff right in that moment, so maybe they bring the community together, which is awesome, but then it's just a one-time, two-time thing. And what it should be is, it should, one, not have to be a reaction. We shouldn't have to wait for something horrible to happen. We should already be involved with the community. We should already be bringing people together so that maybe we can avoid a crisis occurring, and maybe it'll lead people to feel like they are a bigger part of this community and they actually do matter and people care about them, because everybody matters. Everybody has a specific role in our community, and they need to know that. We need to emphasize that, and by bringing us all together as a community, I think that will emphasize it. We also need to not only talk specifically about suicide, which I think we should. I think that we should be more open about the topic, so that people maybe don't feel as judged if they have to bring it up, but we also shouldn't only talk about it all the time, because then that could even trigger thoughts in people's heads. We should be open to just talk about ourselves, though, and talk about what we're struggling with, and just be more open with our community. And if we can bring our community closer together, then that could happen more often. And I'm not talking about the whole city of Loveland. I'm not even talking about all of Thompson Valley. we just need to be more unified. Like, just care about each other more. Know that your actions do have consequences, and that isn't to say that you should watch every single action and be terrified that the next thing you do is going to ruin someone's life, but you should go about your life, go about every single day with the fact that what I do, I don't know how it's going to affect somebody, so do everything in your intention to bring goodness to people, like be a light to people, rather than bringing people down and like trying to diminish their value. What I decided to do for my project was a call to action, and I specifically researched some like different color schemes and stuff like that to evoke specific emotions and things like that. And I just made a pamphlet that has different colors on it, and each like page on the pamphlet discusses different topics. So like some are just facts and statistics of suicide in our area and in the US as a whole. Others are like what we can do, where we can go for help, because that's something that's commonly looked over, and just a bunch of other things like that, like what you can do, how you can be aware, some signs and symptoms, even though it's obvious that it's different every time. Like, you never know for sure how exactly someone is going to look prior to suicide. What I did come across, which was fairly rattling to me, was that a lot of the websites I read, a lot of the stories I read, and the even like foundations and things like that I looked over, a lot of it was all reaction. So a lot of it was they had to go through something horrible, and that's why it started in them to do something about it, like start a website, start a charity, something like that. They had to have something awful happen to them, and I wish it didn't have to be like that, and I don't think it does have to be like that. I think if we can already see it as an issue, then we can go ahead and jump the gun on it and not have to be reactive, but we can be proactive in it. The other thing I saw is a lot of them were stories about communities and stories about places recently hit with suicide, and it would be articles right after the fact about what a community did, like what people did to bring themselves together, to come together to care about people, but then you never heard stories about like years down the road or even months down the road, because it's such a short-lived thing a lot of times. So in the US, and I don't want to make like judgments or claims that engulf everybody, but it's common that people are always on to the next thing. Like, okay, we got done with this, let's jump to the next thing. And I think we do that during grief, or we try to do that in grief also. So we bring the community together after this horrible event. We try to bring awareness to it, and then a few weeks, maybe a couple months down the road, it's like back to normal. There's no long-term change for it. And that is extremely dangerous, I think, because that's just going to feed the issue. If you're only proactive about it for a short-lived time, that's all anyone is going to feel safer. That's all anybody is going to feel part of the community, and then after that it's just going to hit harder that, oh, maybe I don't have a community, oh, maybe I'm not as worthy, which isn't true. The unique thing about, or what I think is unique about my action plan and my call to action, is that it's not focused on necessarily changing others around you or even changing the community. I would hope that in the long run it would change the community and it would call action to everyone, but as of now it's mostly focused on yourself. So it's not asking you to like go stand on a soapbox and preach about suicide and preach about what everyone else should do. It's mostly like, watch yourself, change your actions, be nicer to people, be just more aware in general of people in your community and what people are going through. And this doesn't mean go out and search and look for issues, because it's not necessarily about issues. It's not necessarily about only people who are going through awful things. It's just being more aware of people in general. Knowing that, one, you are not the only person on this earth. You are not the only person in this school. There are hundreds of people around you. And two, even though you're not the only person, you also have so much value, and you have so much influence on people, whether you realize it or not. Just even every day, even as we walk through the halls. And I think that high school is such a major impact in people's lives. And we emphasize high school sometimes as being like the end-all be-all, like this is going to be your peak of existence, and that's not true. But it also shouldn't be the worst of your existence. It shouldn't be like just something people have to struggle to get through. It should be something that people not necessarily want to stay in forever, obviously, but don't hate it while they're there. Like, at least slightly enjoy it, have a good time, and know that they should know that they're loved in the community and loved in the school. So all I'm asking for people is to simply care for others and acknowledge others and see others as human beings rather than just as people walking through the halls, you know? Like, they have emotions, they have past events that you don't know, like they have stories that you don't know. Even your best friend, I'm sure, probably has stories that you just don't necessarily know, or thoughts that you don't know. So just keep that in mind as you're communicating with people, as you're just getting involved with people. And then what I hope to do from this, because this isn't just about calling the whole community to action, this is about changing myself. And what I hope to do is I hope to encourage others to care, and just show people that they are loved and they are a part of this community. And I also hope to, through like my church, maybe even through the school, to bring the community together, and without having to be reactive, but being proactive in it. So making sure our community has a sturdy backbone, so that if something tragic happens, it's not just going to spread like a disease. It's going to hit, and then people have something to rely on. People have other people to talk to. Going back to what has happened at Thompson Valley, what has happened in the northern Colorado area, my main goal in this is just to know that suicide should not be an option. Suicide is not an option. There should be, I know my action plan isn't gonna immediately stop depression, immediately stop everyone from thinking about this, but I just hope that it would show people that it shouldn't even be something that crosses our minds as like a desire or as a want. It should be talked about, I think, and it should be acknowledged, but it shouldn't be an option. And that's just what I want to get across to people, because with being in a community, being in high school, a high school that has been hit by suicide, it is devastating to everyone. And it is heartbreaking to everyone, and I don't want anyone else to have to deal with that, and I don't want anyone else to feel like that is the only option. So that's just kind of my main goal in this whole action plan, and specifically I want to change myself, but also if it changes anyone else, I think that would be awesome. So thanks for listening.